Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Nerd Mode On, and today is Wednesday, so we have yet again another episode of Would You Rather. This is a video series where I'll be going over approximately 5 questions and determining which one is less likely to be invasive. So with the rules and guidelines reviewed, let's start off the episode. Coming in at our first Would You Rather question, I have, if you were stuck on a desert island, would you rather be there with a mermaid, top half human, bottom half fish, or a reversed mermaid, so that'd be the top half would be fish and the bottom half would be human. Now, of course, for my answer on this, I'm gonna go with the traditional mermaid. It's more imaginative. You can kind of visually see what it would look like, the final product. I haven't really come across too many TV shows or movies that really have it the opposite way, so I can't really visually see how the final product would come out. Now, of course, if you're talking about the overall appeal of both sides, I just think having a top half be human would be a little bit more sociable. I think you wouldn't go as insane, especially if you're stranded on a desert island. You're probably not going to be having internet access or any kind of adventurous abilities, and you're not going to be having a group party by any means, considering that you're probably the only two people classified on this island. So when it comes down to it, I think I'd rather just have somebody I can socialize with that would basically in turn make me not go as insane as some of the people you normally find on deserted islands. Most of the time their brain is a little bit toasted in many cases, and I think being able to socialize and also have a helping hand when it comes down to the day-to-day things that you're going to have to do to survive is definitely going to be very beneficial, and you're definitely going to appreciate it when it comes down to the main gist of it. But I think that's kind of how I would go with it, and I think that's more or less where I would look at it when it comes down to that limelight. Coming in at our second question, I have, would you rather get rid of all the bad drivers on the road or never have to wait in line at stores and restaurants? Now, of course, for this specific question, I'm going to go with get rid of all the bad drivers on the road. There are definitely a lot of people that drive me absolutely insane when it comes to having to drive, considering that there are things that bug me. When you don't turn signal, you speed for absolutely no purpose to gain a whole 5 feet. I've never really been somebody to appreciate that. I've never been able to understand the fundamental idea of speeding to gain 20 feet. But when it comes down to it, I think getting rid of all the bad drivers would be a lot better. And when it comes to having to wait in lines, I'm usually very patient. I don't ever have to rush or anything like that. So it's definitely not something that's in the back of my mind bugging me all the time. But of course, getting rid of bad drivers, on the other hand, is definitely something that does appeal to me. Coming in at our third question, I have, would you rather lose an arm or a leg? Now, for the short answer, of course, I'm going to go with lose a leg, but to elaborate a little bit more for you guys, the reason I'd rather lose a leg instead of an arm is primarily because I feel like you wouldn't have to really jump into the workforce. I feel like your abilities to not be able to perform up to standards with what most corporations and businesses occupy or desire from the personnel would be a little bit more excusable. You wouldn't have to jump into a workforce. I feel like the government would jump in there and probably give you financial aid. You would pretty much get to do anything you would want to. You would just have to obviously pace out your money a little bit more or your government check. So I feel like that would be pretty interesting for me. I'd be able to kind of sit at home and do what I like to do and not have to have somebody barking orders at me and making them more money, which in turn would be very awesome. I think I would really enjoy that, and I'd find other ways to probably make money as well, which would definitely be exciting by itself. Coming in at our fourth question, I have, would you rather freeze to death or burn to death? Now, of course, for this specific question, I'm going to go with freezing to death, considering that I could not imagine having your flesh burned off of you would be a very enjoyable experience. Now, of course, both of these experiences are absolutely going to suck. No matter how you look at them, they're just not going to be very fun in comparison to definitely having to sit at home in a very room temperature and being able to enjoy everything that the world has to offer. Now, of course, the reason I chose to freeze to death is considering that I don't imagine that it's going to be as quick as burning to death, so it's going to be prolonged a little longer, of course, but with that in mind, I feel like you just wouldn't feel it as much. Eventually, your fingers are going to go numb. You're not going to be feeling as much. You're eventually just going to kind of pass out and then die, of course. You're not going to be resurrected by any account when it comes down to it. Now, of course, in comparison, you have burning to death, which you're going to feel every single inch of that excruciating pain, and I just could not imagine that. That just definitely would not be something on my top 10 list of things or ways to die when it comes down to it. So I'm definitely going to coincide with going with freezing to death, and I think that's what would be a little bit more enjoyable when it comes down to having to die between two horrible circumstances. And coming in at our final question, I have, would you rather never go on the internet for 5 months or never go to the cinema for 2 years? Now, in this specific case, of course, I think never going to the cinema for 2 years would be better for me, considering that I don't normally go to the movie theater or the the cinema very often. I usually only go for those big movie titles that I want to get every inch of quality and I want to be surrounded by that beautiful sound and the beautiful imagery that the cinema has to offer. Now with that in mind, of course, a lot of the times I just go on the internet anyway and watch the movies that are currently being showed in the cinema anyway, considering that there's always somebody out there with a camera that's recording it, may that be with a tripod or with their crappy camera that they don't know how to make videos with. But with that in mind, I feel like that's just kind of what I do a lot more nowadays. I don't really go to the cinema to pay money, and I feel like being able to not do that for 2 years really wouldn't hamper my ability to enjoy the movies that everybody else enjoys. So with that said and done, of course, I feel like this would just be a better option overall, and I think it would still allow me to enjoy everything that most of you guys enjoy on a consistent basis anyway. So overall, that's how I'd look at it. Now, of course, not having the internet would really hamper my ability to enjoy the hobbies and the overall career that I'm definitely looking into, but when it comes down to it, most of the things you do on a day-to-day basis revolve around the internet, and I feel like not having that would really hamper your ability to coincide with society as well as be successful when it comes down to the life perspective. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode of Would You Rather. If you guys have any questions for future episodes, please let me know in the comments below. I usually go down there and pick those first, so you have a pretty good chance of definitely getting that issued into the next installation. But of course, if you guys have any recommendations for improving the episodes, always feel free to let me know down there as well. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. This is NMO, and I'm going to be signing out, guys. Peace.